After falling short of expectations this year, the Green Bay Packers are facing enormous pressure to put together a Super Bowl contender for 2026. With what we've learned from this season and with the resources available to the Packers, let's create our own realistic offseason plan to help Green Bay hoist the Lombardi Trophy next season in today's rebuild episode of Best Available. Thank you for watching today's episode. Make sure that you are subscribed to the channel and follow us on socials at BestAvailableYT. This is the second episode in our rebuild series, and if you want your team to be mentioned, let me know in the comments if you want to see a different rebuild before we go dive full into draft season. We launched the rebuild series last week with the Las Vegas Raiders and kept emphasizing the importance of having a sustained, long-term approach to help rebuild that franchise. The Packers do not have that luxury. This is a team that's put all of their chips on the table. After Jordan Love quickly proved he could be a franchise quarterback, the Packers have put a ton of weapons around him and given out big contracts to key players, all while making one of the biggest moves in franchise history to acquire Micah Parsons. All of those moves have put the Packers in a position to win now, but with very limited resources this offseason, they need to be very intentional and strategic with the moves that they make. On top of having no first-round pick, the Packers currently are $10 million over the salary cap. And we'll get into some of the cap stuff as we talk about free agency, but let's start this rebuilding series talking about the coaching staff. This is the section that's probably going to have Packers fans the most fired up, and understandably so. I mean, I have my own opinions and thoughts about the current situation, but for the sake of this rebuild video, we're going to go off the information that we currently have, which is that all signs are pointing towards Matt LaFleur signing an extension to stay with the Green Bay Packers. After the collapse against Chicago, I'm honestly at the point where I can understand both sides of this argument on whether to keep or fire LaFleur, but I think we're not addressing the bigger elephant in the room, and it's something I really wanted to hammer in this coaching section for this video, and it's the concern regarding the rest of the coaching staff. The Packers have been historically cheap with their assistant coach pool in recent years, and I don't want to take credit for finding that. I want to make sure I link to my sources, and that is my editor, Justice Mosqueda, over at Acme Packing Company, who has been all over this story regarding, the amount of money that's being paid to assistant coaches, how they're finding guys, simply way too many internal promotions, and I highly encourage you to check out that article while you watch this video so you can get a better picture of just the kind of situation the Packers are in with the current coaching staff as is. One of the biggest takeaways from Justice's story is just how much the Packers in recent years have relied on internal promotions over finding outside help and new ideas. And big reason for that has been simply that they have not been shelling out money for assistant coaches. According to Justice, in terms of coaching experience outside of their current organization, the Packers ranked dead last among playoff teams this season with just 47 years of combined NFL coaching experience outside of Green Bay. And that's including 20 years for special teams coordinator Rich Bisaccia. Whatever side you are on with the LaFleur situation, you just have to admit that the assistant coach staff isn't doing enough. So for the sake of this rebuild video, we're assuming LaFleur is staying, and I'm just at least going to give you my wish list of what positions need to change. For my rebuild, that obviously includes getting rid of Bisaccia, the special teams coordinator, but on top of that, for specific position coaches and like wide receiver, offensive line, linebacker, and it's nothing personal against those coaches, but it just seems like with their internal promotions, it's kind of hurt the development of players at those positions, given that, some of the experience, like for example, the wide receivers coach was previously the assistant offensive line coach. He had some experience as a grad assistant at Notre Dame, worked at Northern Iowa. It's just, I think there needs to be some new ideas, some fresh ideas in the building at some of those positions. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to BS you and throw a bunch of names out there that I have no idea if they're going to be good fits or not. But I will give you one name because I will move mountains for Bill Callahan, the legendary offensive line coach who was just with his son in Tennessee and obviously departed once his son was fired as the head coach. I just think there's so much about that move that could make a lot of sense and help, for a team that's always about draft and develop offensive linemen. I don't think there could be a better option than Callahan, who is currently a free agent. Speaking of free agency, let's dive into that part of this rebuild. As we discussed, $10 million over the cap. There's some pretty easy moves to start getting under that. We need to start making room if we want to make sure that we have the allocations for the rookie pool, for those players that'll be drafted, re-signs, extensions, and hopefully a couple names, outside of the building that you can try and bring in. But that's going to be tricky with the financial situation. So we got to start with cuts. They're going to make some significant cap space. Trayvon Diggs is the easy one. He was picked up off of waivers. Yes, he was supposed to set to make $15-18 million next season, but because he was claimed off waivers, that is not a guaranteed deal for the Packers for next season. It's likely that he would be cut to completely clear his $15 million cap hit off of the books. Now, if you want to try and bring him back in another capacity, I could see, maybe they're negotiating for a completely different deal, but it's not feasible with the current situation to keep Trayvon Diggs around on that kind of deal. Elgton Jenkins will likely be gone as well, and that one is unfortunate. He's played so many different positions for the Packers, and there were really times it felt like he might be, a franchise player for this offensive line, but, injuries and inconsistencies, particularly at center, just have made this untenable at this point. The Packers will save $19.5 million by cutting Elgton Jenkins this season. It just feels like a no-brainer. It sucks because he was, such a promising player for so many years in Green Bay. But at this point, if they can't find the right spot for him, you can save that much money to try and build out the roster elsewhere. I think it's time to part ways with him. No ill will towards Elgton Jenkins whatsoever. I think he really, did an admirable job and always did what he asked while in Green Bay. Fire Brandon McManus into the sun. This one's not even a cost-effective move. It's just, he was tied for 32nd in field goal accuracy this year. And then he goes and costs the Packers 7 points in a 4-point loss. Just an unacceptable performance. He's an aging kicker that's never had a strong leg. And it just feels like this is not the right fit for the conditions the Packers play in come the playoffs. I don't know or even care who they replace McManus with that kicker, but I think I speak for the rest of the Packers fan base that, you can move on from him. We don't care about the potential cost savings or lack thereof in that move. Pretty much everyone else on this roster should stay put simply because even if they're frustrating players, they're at least on team-friendly deals, fill a roster spot. Except for one player, and I think you know who it is. It's Rashan Gary. I hate piling on this guy, but the writing has been on the wall for Gary the entire second half of this season. After putting up 7.5 sacks early in the year, Gary didn't record a single sack over his last 10 games, including the playoffs. The pressure started being less disruptive, and the effort at times was straight up hard to watch, getting caught multiple times jogging in pursuit on film. Like, everyone can see that. The Packers would save nearly $11 million in cap space by cutting ties with Gary, which almost feels certain to happen. You already have Micah Parsons. Lucas Van Ness, despite being hobbled, I thought was playing some of his best football as a Packer late this year. And then you have a couple of young guys to be excited about with Barron Sorrell and Colin Oliver. I think this move, not only is it saving cap space, but I really just think Rashan was a net negative when on the field. After those cuts and putting aside about $9 million for the rookie draft class pool, the Packers would probably have around $20-25 million for re-signings, extensions, and external free agents. We have to be strategic with this money. $20 to $25 million is not a lot to get the rest of the stuff that we need done to get done. And extensions will take up some of it. I'm not a capologist, but I imagine we're going to get deals done in some capacity, or at least conversations started with guys like, Tucker Kraft, Devontae Wyatt, Christian Watson. These are all valuable players that I think you want to see for the long haul, and I imagine that they will stay put. Don't ask me their market value or what those deals are going to look like, but we are going to imagine that's going to take up at least some capacity of the cap space. But those are the three big names that I'm keeping an eye on. As far as the players whose contracts are expiring, let's start with the guys I think should walk, and this is not going to be an easy conversation for the sake of this video. Obviously, especially with Packers fans, there's a lot of emotional ties to these guys, starting with Malik Willis. I think a rational Packers fan understands this is just not going to happen. Even if you want Malik Willis to start over Jordan Love, which I very strongly disagree with, you can't cut Love or move on from him in any capacity. He's just simply making too much money. So that, combined with the fact that Malik Willis's market is going to be extremely robust to get a starting opportunity, you're just simply not going to be able to afford him. It's not a cost-effective move. You're going to have to figure out a backup quarterback elsewhere, whether it's a cheap journeyman veteran, whether they try to roll with Clayton Tune, or draft a guy late in the draft. I think there's options, but the important thing to note with Malik Willis, if he does get a big deal and is a full-time starter next year, the Packers will get one hell of a compensatory pick, a potential 3rd, 4th rounder that can really help them for years to come. Next one's not so hard, but Rashan Walker should walk. Jordan Morgan is the clear successor at left tackle. We've only seen glimpses of him at tackle, and I'll be honest, I thought he did admirable at right tackle for the Packers. I know he went viral for one pass rush rep, getting bull rushed by Montez Sweat. But other than that, all the film I watched, I thought he was more than reliable, certainly way better than he was at guard. That plus I thought Rashan Walker just had a brutal season. Some really, 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 really tough reps. I felt, especially as the year got later, just you could not rely on him to protect Jordan Love's blind side. Another guy that might get you a comp pick, he's still going to be one of the top tackles on the market simply because he played a lot. And Packers fans should be rooting for him to find a place, get paid, and play a bunch of snaps. 2 more guys I think should let walk. Neither of these are fun to talk about, but Quay Walker is one I was really hopeful for when he was a rookie, getting drafted out of Georgia. And I think what really stinks is he's really developed and was playing some of his best football this year. I mean, that playoff game, yes, he was getting picked on in coverage, but some of those run blocking reps were just, outstanding. And the reasons you let him walk was it's just positional value. He's going to command a big deal. Edgerrin Cooper is clearly ascending as a star at that position. They seem to like some of the younger guys on the roster at linebacker as well, and I just think you can use those resources at more valuable positions and bolster other spots. I will root for Quay Walker wherever he goes. Again, I'm just kind of emotionally invested at this point. As someone that coached linebackers my first year of coaching football, watching him grow and develop was super rewarding because I felt like I learned a lot from watching Quay Walker. But I don't think he will be worth the contract that he will be offered, in my opinion. So, Godspeed, Quay Walker. Can't wait to see where you go. And the same goes for this next guy in Romeo Doubs. You simply cannot pay Doubs what he's going to get on the market, given the number of mouths you already have to feed on this offense. A healthy Tucker Kraft, Christian Watson has ascended into a number 1 receiver. Matthew Golden finally broke out in that playoff game. Jaden Reed's a reliable slot. I even still believe in Dontavian Wicks. I thought his hands were better this year. He's still a great separator. There's just simply too many mouths to feed in this passing game that you can't overpay a guy like Doubs, who, yes, he's been extremely reliable, and he was clearly the safety blanket for Love, but I just don't think it makes sense. And another guy, he might get a big deal elsewhere. I can't wait to see where he goes, and I'll be rooting for him forever in his big-ass helmet. As far as guys I want to see re-signed and come back, none of these are splash big names, but I think they're important, and more importantly, given our situation, they are cost-effective. Starting with Sean Rhyan, I don't know what the market looks for him. Centers are hard to come by. He's not naturally a center, but I think you need competition at that position. I just hopefully it's a short-term reasonable deal, but you really don't, with Elton walking or being cut, you don't have a lot of reliable centers on this roster. So I think for competition's sake, if you can get the right team-friendly deal, to me, Sean Rhyan is a no-brainer to bring back because it does feel like center might have been his most natural position. One I'm not sure will actually happen, but one I could see and would appreciate if you can get it on a 1-2 year deal pretty cheap, and that's Kingsley Enagbari. Yes, maybe he's just a guy, but for a backup rotational edge, I want just a guy. I think that's perfectly suitable, and I thought Enagbari had some really nice flash plays throughout the season. I think he's perfectly capable of the role you could ask him to do in that second rotation of edges, and I just think that if he likes staying in Green Bay, is willing to work with the team, I think he's one of those names I'm totally comfortable with keeping for another short-term deal as some of the younger edges develop. And this last guy, most of you might not care about, but damn it, I care about him, and that's special teams ace Nick Niemann. Before he tore his pec halfway through the season, this was clearly the special teams ace. I swear every time there was a kickoff or a punt, he was down the field making a tackle. And I just think these guys are so damn valuable. He came back and, barely played against the Bears. He played one defensive snap on a 2-point conversion, but his bread and butter is special teams. I think he makes so many plays there. It's kind of the mentality I want from a special teamer. I think he's tremendously valuable to that phase of the game, and I hope they find a way to keep him around. As far as outside free agents they could bring in, I just need to make it clear, they will not be going after big name free agents. Just accept it. It's not the end of the world. This roster is still in very good shape. One big swing on a name is not worth sacrificing the cap space to add important depth and competition at other positions. And truthfully, if you look at it, assuming everyone is healthy, there's not a ton of needs on this roster right now. I think a true nose tackle or two would be tremendously valuable to helping with the run game. I think some offensive line competition is going to be valuable with some of the names that are leaving, especially if they can't re-sign Ryan. I think it becomes an even bigger priority. I could see a journeyman veteran at linebacker with Quay leaving, just a big body to kind of fill that role that's being vacated. And any kicker, literally, do not care. Just find a kicker. Just find one. That's all I'm asking. I also want to stop and talk about cornerback as well, because this is, one of those very, highly talked about positions for the Packers. It's been a disappointment. But I hope you realize that there is a very real scenario where Carrington Valentine, Keyshawn Nixon, and Nate Hobbs are all starting and playing for this team in 2026. Like those three with Javon Bullard, that's 4 guys for 3 spots. And simply they're all, besides Hobbs, on really team-friendly contracts, which makes it hard to justify leaving them. Yeah, Keyshawn Nixon can drive you nuts at times, but that is a cheap starting corner that when you have a pass rush can be pretty damn effective at triggering downhill and covering everything underneath. So I can't imagine there's a scenario where they don't take any moves at cornerback. But for me personally, I'd rather look at the draft and find a totally different body type than the guys they have. And we'll talk about that in the draft section. I hope they add at least one more body, but I just wanted to let Packers fans know, hey, there is a scenario where you see no movement at that position. I'll just assume literally any kicker for the Packers, but let's talk about those other 3 positions we talked about before my cornerback rant, starting with nose tackle, and a name I can see for each of these. At nose tackle, spoiler alert, I will also be drafting a nose because I just think they need big bodies. So much of this roster is just constructed of 3 technique, lighter defensive tackles. I think it's a big reason why they're getting caved in all year, but Dalvin Tomlinson's a name I'm monitoring. You're not going to find a sexy, highly coveted nose that the Packers can afford. And yes, Dalvin Tomlinson's best years are probably behind him. But I'm willing to take, a bet if he's willing to take a cheap deal that maybe the reason he struggled so much was that he was playing in a really, in my opinion, disappointing Arizona Cardinals defense. I think that breath of fresh air, I think him being cheap, I think him being 325 pounds, I just need a cheap veteran big body that knows what he's doing. I can't have, this rotation of guys like Jordan Riley or Bohanna or, Nazir Stackhouse, who I thought was, a brutal undrafted free agent as much as I was rooting for him. They just need a competent veteran that's cheap to just, hold up blocks and let Edgerrin Cooper and this linebacker crew go to work. For offensive line, I really don't know if I want to go tackle or guard or center, but, with limited resources and how I want to attack the draft, I think I want someone to compete for a starting job with Anthony Belton at right guard. I don't expect them to try and, put too much pressure on Banks just simply because they have another year before they could theoretically move on from that deal. But I want to see someone that's a veteran that can compete with Belton. Because, yes, Belton flashed at times. I think guard is his more natural position. But there were also some real lows, including in that Bears playoff game, where I want someone to light a fire under him. And for me, Dalton Reisner's a name I'm very curious about. He's on the other side of 30, but he has tons of experience. He's had some really good years, was a pretty reliable guy in Denver, and has bounced around a lot. I could see if he wants an opportunity to be a starter somewhere and compete, for a potential Super Bowl, maybe he's willing to take a bit of a discount to play for a team like the Packers. So you could tell me 1,000 offensive line names, and I'll take a look at them, but when I'm looking at, guys I think could theoretically, compete and be cost effective, Reisner's a name I'm going to keep an eye on. I'm not going to put too much pressure on finding a linebacker. It seems like they feel comfortable rolling with a crew of Tyron Hopper, Edgerrin Cooper, and Isaiah McDuffie. But if one of those guys goes down, you're in real trouble. We saw that one defensive rep of Nick Niemann. I don't think for as good as he is on special teams, I don't want him starting full-time on defense. So I would just feel comfortable finding a guy that's maybe on his way out, needs one last paycheck. Sounds too harsh, but just wants another job before he hangs up the cleats. And maybe a guy like Shaq Thompson, who's going to be 32 years old, has bounced around a little bit, but played a really long time. A name like that, I want someone that's comfortable with understanding their role as a depth, break in case of emergency guy, maybe can play a little bit, if something's not working with the other three. That Shaq Thompson's a name I'd be pretty excited about as far as a depth piece. Who would you want the Packers to cut? Who do you want to see them bring back? Who do you want to see them bring in? Let me know in the comments. I know I threw a lot of names and numbers around in that section, so just let me know. I'm curious for your thoughts for the Packers. But let's go ahead and move to our mock draft. It's only going to be 6 rounds. We did this last week. I make it very clear, listen, once we get to these later rounds, I'm not going to pretend to know all these names. I want to make sure I'm giving genuine analysis for the players that I'm picking, that I've watched the tape and I've left notes so that you can get a better feel for these guys, because we still have until April to understand the full 7 rounds, and I'm just not there yet. So let's go ahead and dive into that mock right now. Obviously no first round pick, but with the 52nd overall pick in the 2nd round, I'm taking another nose, and this is a guy I'm super excited about. It is the big citrus out of Iowa State and Domonique Orange. Another 325-pound guy. Orange is an athletic and powerful nose tackle prospect who can make splash plays. Yeah, he's got some limited length. I've got some questions about his stamina that might contain him to a rotational role. But he is so damn powerful. He's got a little quickness to him, and I just really like the way he takes on blocks. This is a guy that's my dream nose with how the rest of this roster is constructed. There's a couple other defensive linemen I would pray could potentially fall to the Packers, but when you're picking outside of the top 50, you just got to take what you can get. And I would be super excited about a guy like that. You can pair Big Citrus with Big Sleepy in the nose tackle room. I think there's a lot you can do with this guy. I'm very hopeful that he can be a player. From what I've heard, had some, weight issues early on. Sounds like he's kept his weight down. When I hear like that sounds like a driven guy to me, who's determined to have an impact at the NFL level. So give me the Big Citrus. Some Packers fans have been probably clamoring this whole video, where's the corner? Where's the corner? Where's the corner? Here's your corner in the 3rd round. It is Arkansas cornerback Julian Neal, a guy I am fascinated by. Not perfect, but when I see 6'2" and 208 pounds with really good length, I'm going to listen, because that is a completely different body type than the other corners the Packers have on the roster. I think if Jeff Hafley stays, what makes Neal such an exciting player is that he's so tenacious and a ruthless tackler. I think he can be a real asset in run support. And I also think he has the athletic ability and, decent speed to be a reliable coverage corner. But that also is kind of one of his weaknesses. I think he's a tick stiff. I don't trust him totally in man coverage. But with the Packers roster construction and Micah Parsons back, and having safety help over the top, I think that's what makes Neal such a kind of ideal fit for the rest of the defense. Yeah, he has some flaws, but that kind of big body guy that can support in the run game could do so much for this defense that the other corner simply can't do. And, if you do want a corner, I think you want a different body type in a guy like Julian Neal. We're going to bolster that offensive line in the 4th round with a guy I've gotten around to recently that I'm really interested in J.C. Davis out of Illinois. This is a 335-pound tackle with length, and what stands out to me at that size is this is a guy with really good footwork and fluidity that I think he could play left tackle. So if Jordan Morgan does not work out, this could be a guy I could see that could slot in and be one of these, Rashan Walker, was a late round pick. This is a little bit earlier, but a 4th round guy out of nowhere that comes in is a really productive pass protector. That is going to be his calling card. Now, the issue and why he is a 4th round pick, I don't really trust his lower body strength. Maybe he can anchor a little bit, but the run game needs some work as far as play strength. His pad level's okay. I think the biggest thing that will unlock him as a pro in both the pass and the run is his hand placement. When he does strike cleanly, it is devastating. He's got big old mitts. I've taken some screenshots. I cannot wait to see his hand size. He's just got, gigantic paws. But the strikes are usually too outside. They're kind of inconsistent. If he can clean up where he's striking with his hands and use the rest of his athletic profile, this is a guy that screams future Packer to me. I think he could be, a legitimate starter with some proper development that I think could be, actually home run for the Packers in the later rounds. Round 5 is a tough one, but we will go center here in Parker Brailsford, and I'll admit, probably not, the body type the Packers are looking for anymore on the offensive line. But this is one of these guys, for how undersized he is. I think he's wired the right way. I think his technique is outstanding. Tons of years of experience as a starter at Alabama will do that for you. He's wired the right way, and I think he's got the IQ. My favorite thing about him, for being a small guy, it feels like he's always playing with urgency. His head's always on a swivel. He's trying to get to his spot immediately to the snap. Like, everything he does is with the utmost urgency. And I think even if we're talking about a 290-pound lineman, I think he's doing everything the right way that, I think he's worth a swing in the later rounds for a center. Yeah, he's a little small, might not fit the body types the Packers want on the offensive line anymore. But given their situation at center, and you had Lacita Smith snapping the ball in a playoff game, I think it's worth a swing. Maybe he's not a starter, but at the very least, you have a capable backup. And with our 6th round pick, we'll go with linebacker Landon Barton, the brother of Cody Barton, I believe on the Denver Broncos. His mother was a Utah Hall of Fame basketball player. His dad was drafted by the Blue Jays. This is just a family of athletes. And at linebacker, at 6'4", nearly 240, this guy just checks the boxes for me as a potential, Quay Walker replacement at Mike. This is a guy that's got good play speed. He's got the agility. He can be a legit coverage linebacker, which, Quay obviously struggled with. I still think he can get caught staring at the quarterback's eyes, but I think big body, athletic, can play in coverage. That is a worthwhile swing for me, especially when his brother has also, been a serviceable NFL player throughout his career. So there you have it with our mock draft and the offseason rebuild. You're not going to see a lot of splash moves when a team is this cap constrained and has already pushed the chips in to win now. But I hope you've seen a realistic plan for how to turn this team around. I wouldn't even say turn it around, but continue to put it on the right path to a Super Bowl. Because, man, I think even without a lot of these moves, a healthy Packers team in 2026 with an improved coaching staff can still be really, really dangerous. So, stay optimistic, Packers fans. I know the way the season ended was, devastating, and I'm still processing it. But I hope this video was informative, entertaining. Let me know in the comments what you would do differently, or what you enjoyed, or what you would be excited about. That'll do it for today's episode, and we'll be back on Monday following the divisional round of the playoffs. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. Go Pack Go, and we'll see you next week.